So I know I like to work out material on the show. It's like, oh, hey, former comedian still tries to seem engaging and entertaining by having a podcast. So, I work out bits. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're not. And I am the comic relief of this show. Yes, the show is my namesake. Yes, there are two co-hosts who are both funny and engaging and clearly financially intelligent, if nothing else. But today we decided to add a higher comedic element to the show here on the Pete the Planner Show, and that is welcoming stand-up comedian Danny Dunn to a special. Kristen, what are we going to call him? What are we going to call him?
The only thing that just came to my mind was the fact that now no one's going to believe that the three of you aren't related, and I don't know why that didn't dawn on me until just now.
Danny, welcome to the show.
Well, two of us are related.
Yeah.
Or all of you.
But we don't have to say which two of us are related.
It is true. This is like a story problem all of a sudden.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
Danny, he refuses to do a 23andMe test with me just to confirm that we aren't related. What do you think? Should he submit to a saliva test?
I think there's a lot that Peter's hiding in his DNA, and I think we need to get to the bottom of it. So we need to collect as much DNA as we can, and we can send it off, and then we'll get some answers.
I'm keeping my DNA to myself on today's show.
I think that's why he shaves his head.
That's true.
To have as little DNA as possible.
That's a theory. So Danny is my cousin. Our dads are brothers. His dad looks like a sort of the poor man's John McCain.
Right? That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like John McCain. May he rest in peace. John McCain.
John McCain, of course.
Not your dad. And Damian Dunn, no relation. We just have a tremendous amount in common other than lineage. And Kristen Elanius, who is regretting every moment of her life at this point in time. Kristen, have you planned a delightful show for us this week?
I don't know about delightful, but I have plans.
We see Big Rick Swink makes it into the show today. Hello, Big Rick Swink. Danny, there's a gentleman who is part of our community here. His name is Big Rick Swink. Sounds like the sort of guy you want to sit down at a bar primarily decorated with various types of wood and enjoy a beer with, right?
Of course, yeah. Rick, how we doing?
Yeah.
Is this comments from fans who are listening to the live stream?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Danny was born, I believe, in the 90s. Is that correct?
In the 90s, correct.
Yeah. You and Kristen are probably similar. Yeah, you guys are probably the same age. Yeah, you, Kristen.
Can I ask Kristen? I probably shouldn't ask how old you are.
No.
Do you want to say what year you were born instead?
No, but seriously,
Dame,
how much do you weigh? So Danny is a comedian out in LA area, does a lot in Santa Barbara, Pasadena, various spots in LA.
Yeah, all over LA. So Los Angeles proper, and then we venture out every once in a while.
He's very funny. I might link some of his material to the podcast. A lot of it. Remember, we're on LinkedIn. LinkedIn. Brian Pinkin says hello, Heather. Good to see you. Catching the live show. Met some listeners this week. Met some random podcast listeners. I have an awkward story for you. Dame, you know that I have the mentality of probably a gentleman in my 60s. And so I think it's more interesting that we have a radio show than we do a podcast. So someone introduced me to someone. They said, oh, this is Peter Dunn. He's got a really good podcast. And I said, well, radio show. And when I said, well, radio show to the person I was being introduced to, they heard radio show. And then all of a sudden it became less important because they were more excited by podcasts. And that's how I know that I'm sort of out of the pop culture relevance,
But did you say it to kind of puff yourself
Yes.
up a little bit of like, well, it's more than that.
But Danny, as a fellow ginger, one who still owns it, other than you're wearing a hat to cover that flamey mess, that things usually backfire. And that's what happened.
Danny, has he told you, or should I say, how many times has he told you that he's a top 1% podcast?
Have I told you that?
I've actually never been told that.
You were on a top 1% podcast.
But he does tell me how often people come up to him. Like we got breakfast this morning, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn.
No, go ahead.
Peter was like, it'll probably happen over here.
Peter.
He's like, people come up to me all the time. Like I would say it's definitely going to happen while we were here. And then on our way out, someone grabbed him, I think by the shirt and tugged it like a child and was like, excuse me. I love your show.
Yeah. So I took off my shirt and left. Hello, Leah.
He left the shirt in the restaurant.
Daniel, David, and Caitlin. So it's a family affair. Caitlin Alenius, Kristen's sister, Kristen Sinner, joins us. That's got weird.
Sorry, Caitlin.
You want to start the radio show here? Okay.
Suppose.
All right. I did it again. I went to pull up the timer and I brought up the calculator.
I'm
getting old. Okay. Let's go. In 3, what are we doing? Greg's question?
Yes.
Okay. Were we not calling it Greg's question?
Oh, you can call it whatever. It's just, yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. This week on the Pete the Planner Show, we answer your money questions. Here's how the show works. You email us askpete@petetheplanner.com. That's askpete with a K. I mean, look, if we're in Basque country, it could be ASQU something Pete. Anyway, it's askpete@petetheplanner.com. That's askpete@petetheplanner.com. And you email us and we'll answer your question on the air. What we will not do is call you after the show and try to sell you things, because we don't really do that. And most often, if you email us, we probably actually won't even, if we're being honest, we won't even read it. Joining us this week is Danny Dunn, Kristen Alenius, my coworkers here at Your Moneyline. Hello, people.
Hello.
Good day.
And special guest of the show this week is LA-based comedian Danny Dunn. Relation. So Damian Dunn and I are not related. Danny Dunn and I are related. He is an LA-based comedian, and he joins us on the show today. Hello, Danny.
Guys, it's a pleasure to be here.
That seemed insincere. All right. So here is the first question of the show. Dear Kristen, Dame, and Pete, in that particular order. Currently going through a when it rains, it pours type of life financial situation. Dame, I would like to use one of my timeouts.
You get 2.
Wow. We've been there. Is it the worst? Dame, how many times a year are you in a I'm bleeding money scenario, do you believe?
Twice, but it feels like so much more.
Right?
Yeah.
It's because they're varying amounts of time. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Kristen, how many times a year do you bleed money?
I say like once a year. I feel like it really gets me.
I got stroked about 8 weeks ago with air conditioner and some car stuff. It just got crushed. Danny, curious, do you ever feel like you're just absolutely bleeding money?
Constantly, yes.
Constantly. So it's once a year, and the longevity of that is 365 days. Is the period.
When you guys said once a year, my breath left my body. I constantly feel that way.
Back to the email. Within the last 2 weeks, new tires, that's $900 for the van, $2,500 car fix for the Prius, broken washing machine, that's $900, and a $1,200 car fix for the van. We're reaching in and touching an account that I really prefer not to touch, the old hostage fund, if you will. Call it the emergency savings. Yes, 2 emergencies. And this is the first time we've had to touch it. On one hand, I feel good that we have the money and blessed and highly favored, and we can access this account to help. On the other hand, I'm extremely frustrated because touching this account feels like we are taking a step back financially. My question is, how do I get over the feeling and back on track when it comes to my finances? More psychology and less math driven. Love the show. You guys do a tremendous job. Greg, Kristen, he said psychology. And I said, let's go to the persons with the master's degree. How does someone get their head right if that is their life?
You have to know what makes you tick as a person, in my opinion. So for me, I would say that I would need to look in this situation at what is my path to being back to where I was before this happened. How long does it take me to get back to this place where I feel comfortable? And I would work toward that goal, whatever, if it's going to take me 6 months, if it's going to take me 12 months, whatever that time frame is. And I would lean into the math to help me feel better about it.
Dame, $5,500 was the outlay on the financial bleeding that just occurred. I did the math for us. Sometimes it's a weekend and people don't want to do the math. And so as the host, I'll do it. 5,500 American dollars. Dame, is that daunting to think, how long is it going to take me to build up $5,500 more?
Sure. Even if you have the category built into your budget where you are actively saving into a savings account, it's not likely going to be $500, $600, $700 for most families. It's going to take a significant amount of time. The good news is you've already prepared for it. The money was there. It was used appropriately. And now you are going to replenish that account. I think the bigger mental challenge for me would have been if I didn't have money set aside and I had to put it on credit or something else. And that would have been, to Greg's point, that would have felt like a significant step backwards. But we get these mental games and standards built up in our heads that even when we have money set aside for an intended purpose, we have a hard time letting it go. Retirement dollars, it happens with, Pete, I'm sure you've seen it over the years where people do a great job of saving, and then they're reluctant to spend that money in retirement for whatever reason. It could be an emergency fund. It could be any number of things, down payment on a house, car. But once we have that, once we see that money sitting in a savings account or wherever it is under the mattress, we don't want to let it go.
Danny, you are an expert at metaphors as a stand-up comedian, and even understanding the word metaphor. You have a lot of takes on that. Let me paint a picture for you here.
Sure.
What Greg has gone through is that he was driving on a country road and he got a flat tire. And since he had a spare tire, his next task is to go get the original tire repaired. Is it inconvenient? Yes. Was he upset? Yes. But here's what it wasn't, Danny. He didn't have to walk 10 miles into town because he didn't have a spare tire. And so that's the element. And so how is that for a metaphor?
I find metaphors confusing. This thing is like another thing. Now there are two things.
Yeah.
It's too much.
It's a lot to keep track of. Kristen, what other elements here? Let's go old school here. Are all four of these emergencies? New tires for a car, emergency, or should he be tedious and have a car repair fund?
I mean, if you want to get technical, you could bucket those funds separately. I don't personally. I think it depends on how much margin you have available in your budget. And that's something that I don't know the super particulars of this situation. Maybe they're in a situation where before they were able to cash flow an emergency, and now they're not. So maybe that's why they're feeling that way. Or maybe they were able to build up an emergency savings fund really quickly, but life circumstances have changed. And now replenishing that feels like it's a steeper hill to climb. I think there could be other circumstances here.
Yeah, Dame, I'm liking Kristen's idea of you go how much time do you want to take to rebuild this? And then you just sort of chunk it down to those months. Do you think this is the importance of having a natural savings mechanism every month, or do you feel like, oh, now they're going to have to subtract that amount of spending out of other areas of their life to make up for it? What do you think most people do?
Most people, I think they're going to have to try and scrimp and save and try and figure out where they can get money to replenish that account. That's why it's so important to have this already designated in your monthly budget. And if you don't have a budget where you do this, maybe you consider having some small portion of your paycheck directed to a savings account automatically, so you don't have to worry about it. It just happens because, like anything else, if you're forced to make that decision, you're probably not going to choose the one that might be a little bit painful. You're going to choose the one that is the easiest to do on a month in, month out basis.
You're listening to the Pete the Planner Show. Normal co-host Danny Dunn, Kristen Elanius joined me, and special in-studio guest, I don't know why I want to say a word after guest. He's just a guest. Is LA-based comedian Danny Dunn, and he is related to me, mind you. Danny, you are financially smart, but you are not a financial genius like the other three people on this show. How do you think of your emergency fund? Do you sort of chunk it down of well, this part of it's for my car, this part of it's for a house I don't own? How do you get your head around that?
No, first of all, no one owns a house in LA. Also, it's very generous of you to assume that I have an emergency fund.
I know you have an emergency fund.
I do. Pete, I called Pete maybe a year ago, and I had all of my money in my checking account. Every dollar I had was currently in my checkings account. And I like to think I've grown in that last year, but you guys, the listener, should have heard his reaction to that statement.
I guffawed like an old, what? Well, good Scarlet Donnie. I got upset.
When Peter is startled, he turns into Jimmy Stewart, apparently.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny when Danny calls my house and we chat, I go into this chair in my office at home, and my wife always knows that I'm talking to Danny. I always sit right there when I talk to him. I don't know why. It actually sounds scandalous, and it's not meant to be.
We call it Pete's special chair. If I have a second to ask a question,
you have about 10 seconds, but go ahead.
If I don't, if someone takes money out of their emergency fund, does that then become the top priority to put it back into the emergency fund?
Kristen?
Yes.
Over everything?
Yeah. I mean, other than your mortgage and possibly buying some sustenance every once in a while. Speaking of sustenance, let's talk financial nightmares. That's what we're doing next, right here on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner. That's 9 minutes and 22 seconds, bruv. Yes.
Your camera doesn't like the white shirt as much as the green one.
Oh, why did the color change?
Yeah.
But here's the other thing. I don't like sweating my head off, so I don't care.
Okay, I was just letting you know.
No. That was not as rude as it was meant to sound. Here's the thing. Kristen, I'm used to not be aesthetically pleasing in any lighting or camera angle, so I'm okay with that.
No, that's... Dame, help me. That's not what I meant.
No, you're doing great.
That's not what I meant. I meant that the camera, it didn't readjust for the light difference.
Yeah, no, I don't care.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Bit of a monster boss off the air.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I'll just go back to
hey, that's good. Shut up.
You thought the Fallon article was bad. This, what I'm about to put out on this show will rock the financial world.
Is there any truth to the fact that there's a writer's strike and you left town and you're here in Indiana, just like it's like return to glory? Why are you here? Because of the Writers Guild strike?
I'm here for a wedding.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah, I'm here for a wedding. I'm officiating the wedding. So
Nice.
It's a big weekend for a lot of people.
All right, do you want to run your joke by
I thought this was so funny. And I made the mistake of running it by the bride and groom before doing it. It's better to just did I lose him? Oh, there we go. It's better to lose or ask for forgiveness, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a section where I thank everyone for being there, obviously, right? And I want to say, hey, thank you so much for being here for Adam and M's special day. If you're here for Jared Goldstein's bar mitzvah, you are in the wrong room. And then, which that's only the setup. I have a plant in the audience who is going to get up and go, take off his yarmulke and then walk out the back door.
Yes.
Awesome.
No, it's funny, but it's like this young woman's special day. She doesn't want jokes.
Oh, you don't want a wedding shouldn't have theatrics and pageantry?
Not in the Midwest.
I would argue that's the point.
I would say as Mike D would say.
I care most about Kristen's opinion. Kristen, bad idea, good idea.
I thought it was funny, but
how many people are in this wedding? Do you have a rough idea of the crowd size?
There's about 250 people at this wedding. 150.
Those are very different numbers.
There's 150 people at this wedding.
Okay.
Oh. So it could go over really, really bad with only 150.
It's a big swing.
Yeah.
There's crowd participation. It hinges on a lot of factors. I also want to introduce myself as Joel Osteen.
Just so you had a little bit of
credibility.
Are there more bride's family expected, or are they both local?
It's one's from Buffalo, one's from Indiana. So I think the Indiana side will be the majority.
Do you think they would appreciate the joke?
I don't think anyone in the audience would appreciate the joke.
Okay.
I think it's a joke for the groom.
Oh,
the groom loved the joke. The bride said, "Do not do that at my wedding."
Big Rick Swink has a point, as he often does.
What did Big Rick say?
If someone chooses a comedian to officiate their wedding and they're going to get mad about him telling a joke, I think they may have some other issues going on.
Rick Swink, a modern day philosopher.
No, Big Rick Swink is everything to this show. Danny, as a Midwesterner, I know that it's just a vibe. It's a thing. It is definitely recognized probably when you're out in LA. And I know even when you were dating here in the Midwest, even taking a date over to your parents' house got awkward just because of the Midwesternness, especially if they weren't even local, right?
Sure. People are caught off guard if you're from really either coast, which I'm sure you guys have met people from either one. People are never.
No.
Dame's like, I keep to my group.
Yeah.
People are so confused about the Midwest. They think people don't expect the stereotypes to be so true. I brought a girl who was from the East Coast. She lives in LA. She's from the East Coast. I brought her home to meet my parents for the first time. And I think Midwestern parents are more nervous about making a good impression on you, the girlfriend, So my mom was more nervous than my girlfriend, and my mom kind of panicked, and she brought this girl in the house. They'd never met. She brings her in the house by the hand, leads her in the house, and she wanted to make her feel like she was part of the family, like one of the kids. So she made her stand against our door frame, our entryway door frame, and she measured her. No. She made her stand there, pulled out a tape measure, marked her height on our door frame. And Kristen, just as a general rule, I don't date girls who should be expecting growth spurts. Right? Yeah. I feel like that's a dynamite rule.
Good clarity there,
Did your mom step back and go, that'll do?
That'll do just fine.
No.
Yeah, it's also, she could have been like measuring her for like a straight jacket or something. I mean, like it's like she's gonna be a prisoner. She's still in your basement. This girl, you've not seen her. In a couple years.
We don't speak anymore.
Yeah, that got dark. Okay, so speaking of dark, let's do a segment on financial nightmares. This is Kristen's topic, so we know what she's been going through this week. All right, in 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner show. If I wake up in the panic in the middle of the night, it's not because my burglar alarm went off with all those burglars running around. It's because I've likely had a financial nightmare. And I don't mean, like a metaphor of a financial nightmare. I mean, I'm literally sweating bullets, figuratively, as I wake up having thoughts about financial ruin. And Kristen pre-show was like, hey, does anybody else have this? And the reality is, yeah, I think we all do. Kristen, financial nightmares, do they mean something's horribly wrong? Is it just anxiety? Like what is happening?
I think it's for me, and that's why I wanted to get other opinions. So in the chat, I would love to know if other people feel this way too. I think it's because we deal with the financial realities of people on a day-to-day basis in our jobs that sometimes you try to not internalize that because their reality is different from yours, but sometimes it creeps into your subconscious, obviously, because I had a nightmare last night that even though I'm a financial expert, I had signed for a variable rate mortgage.
What?
I know.
By the way, that's the nerdiest financial nightmare of all time.
I know. I'm sorry. And not only was it variable, but it was this like product that no one had ever heard of where they could just like increase my rate whenever they wanted. And I got a letter in the mail that my 5.5% rate, which you guys already make fun of me for, was going to be 6.5% subject to future increases. And in the dream, this would not be true, but in the dream, it was going to cost me an extra $400 a month. And I was sweating. It was awful.
What Dame, I believe you're certified, at least on LinkedIn, as a dream analyzer. Mm-hmm. What do you think this dream says about miscellaneous?
Well, I think it means she's got some serious regret going on about some issues with commitment as well on her.
Things getting personal.
Danny, sitting in the show this week. Danny Dunn, LA-based comedian. Damian. Everyone with a D Dunn name. Danny, you were also specialized in analyzing dreams. What do you think of this pretty intense financial nightmare for Kristen?
First of all, I think you should have had Joseph from Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat as a special guest instead of me if you're doing dream interpretation.
Sure, fair.
Also, this reminds me of in college when I took a Spanish class that was way above my level, and then every once in a while the teacher would say something and the whole class would laugh, and I would have pretty much zero idea. I was like, I thought biblioteca meant library, but everyone seems to act like it's a punchline. When you said the variable, I was like, and you guys started laughing. Like that's crazy. That's a nightmare. I was like, I could see myself doing that. I have no idea how bad that is. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is that dream?
That's a good question, Kristen. Scale of 1 to 10, if that was your reality.
In the spirit of metaphors, can you give me what a metaphor would be for the severity of that situation?
I cannot give you a metaphor, but these particular circumstances where there was no cap and they could raise rates as often as they wanted, that's like a 10. I mean, it was worst case scenario. We were talking about my mortgage was very quickly going to become unaffordable and I would have to move.
I had a recurring dream probably 8 or 9 years ago about the FBI raiding our home because I didn't declare like $100 of 1099 income. And that, Dame, do you remember? Dame, maybe don't. several years ago, there was an FBI financial raid on my street. Do you remember this?
Yes.
Okay. So I was, I think I was at Newark, just landed, and Mrs. Planner hits me up on the Palm Pilot, and she's like, the FBI is raiding a few doors down from our house. There's news cameras everywhere. And it was a financial crime or whatever. And it just like stuck in my head. And then months after that, I'm having this dream of like, I didn't report 1099 income. And then like, I wake up in cold sweat and tears. And Kristen, it got to the point where I would go into the first part of my day unconvinced it wasn't true. You ever have that where like, you're pretty sure the dream happened, especially if it's financially related?
100%, especially if it feels like it was at the end of your sleep cycle, like you kind of wake up out of it. It sometimes takes a while to come back to what is reality. And to bring it back to how serious of a problem would that be? Because I feel like that could be a follow-up question here. Not reporting $100 in 1099 income is not worthy of any sort of FBI attention. So
I remember actually going to Mrs. Planner like in a panic, like the next couple of nights, and just been like, "Hey, I need to talk to you about something serious." And I was like, I think this could happen. Like my dream actually convinced me it was a thing. Dave, I'm curious, any recurring financial dreams?
Yeah, it's a variation, but it's usually on the same theme. So it's missing bills or missing payments. Where it's like, we haven't gotten your mortgage for 6 months, whatever it is, or a car payment or just electric or whatever. And I know it seems potentially minor for some people, but stuff like that it just eats at me. And I will sit up straight and check my computer, make sure everything's set up to go. And it's very nerdy, but that's who I am.
As a non-financial person, Danny, do you have financial nightmares? I mean, while sleeping.
I haven't done my taxes yet this year.
Well,
is that bad?
Well, you've got about 20 days to get that done, Dave?
Okay. Then I think I'm fine.
Yeah.
I mean, with the filed extension.
Yeah. What's the chance? Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, you're fine.
So I have nothing. I have no nightmares then.
Yeah, I have no nightmares.
I'm good.
To be fair, Damien, your financial nightmare for someone who takes a very laid back approach to their budget could actually happen. If you have everything set up on auto pay and you know that you meet your monthly expenses, you could absolutely get a letter in the mail that one payment has slipped through the cracks. That happened to someone that I know. Everything was on auto pay and their account was compromised. They didn't check their mail. So their bank had closed their account and a bunch of their bills weren't being paid and they didn't know because everything's always covered. We're fine. And finally they checked their mail and realized they were behind on a bunch of stuff. That could totally happen to somebody.
And looking forward to that nightmare happening in the next couple nights. Appreciate that new twist.
Damon, you've owned a business or two. I think with sort of the unspoken here, at least for me, is there's my personal financial nightmares.
Yeah.
But if anyone listening right now has ever owned a business, the visceral feel of a business financial nightmare is breathtaking. It is the worst thing in the world. Dame, am I wrong?
No, I mean, those two, I don't know if they were necessarily nightmares. They were just reality sometimes. And they revolved around two things: payroll and clients that were slow to pay.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, sorry.
Do you guys find it weird that you guys are the most prepared people to deal with financial anxieties in situations, but experiencing the most anxiety about these situations? Like, I would trust, if I was in a situation, I would call you.
Yeah. And then I have a nightmare about your situation, and then don't tell you.
But it sounds like you're freaking out all the time.
That's fair, Kristen. I mean, I think maybe we're onto something here.
Yeah, I think it comes back to, because we hear about it, you take people's problems on as your own. Sometimes a lot of the time, we care about others' personal financial lives more than they care about them.
Totally.
And as a result, I think, I don't know how that works psychologically, but you internalize it. And then apparently in dream state, you apply it to your own personal financial life.
I gotta assume like a dietitian or a physician for that matter.
Yeah, you guys are like doctors and COVID nurses.
Yeah, they probably have similar like medical based nightmares. I would assume. Again, Dame, that's just another financial person comparing themselves to a medical professional. Yeah. We love doing that.
You guys are on the front lines.
Yeah.
Let's take a moment of silence for our first responders on this show.
Oh Lord. All right, so let's do this. Let's everyone calm down. Calm down. We've got more email questions coming after the break. Ask Pete at PeteThePlanner.com is how you get that email to us. And your ears are how you get the answer. That's next on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner. Whew. All right. Mm-hmm. So, Danny, so far your experience here different than you thought it'd be?
I'm having. I don't know if I had an expectation.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Not in a bad way. Well, just when you join a dynamic, you never know what the dynamic's going to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm just settling into, how does Kristen feel about Dame? How does Dame feel about Pete?
Yeah.
Is there tension? Is there beef? Are there alliances? And I'm just enjoying seeing it all play out. It's like one big game of Catan.
Yeah.
As far as witty FM morning shows go, how's the vibe on this one?
I think this one's great. Yeah. Now I'll turn it over to you guys. Feedback for me. Am I a wrench in your well-oiled machine, or are you enjoying?
You're playing it well.
Fresh air?
I think you're playing it well, but I'm the most biased person because I'm a fan. But I think you're playing it well.
Jane, what do you think?
Yeah, I have no problems.
As the most withholding man on the show, what do you think? The stoic of the show.
Now you're close. You're getting right there. You've read the room.
The foundation.
That might be a little strong. My name's not on the show. I'm not the foundation of anything. No, it's good. You are contributing appropriately, and you're not stepping on, which is the challenge of stepping on people when you're trying to join a bigger group.
Yeah. So the idea here, I texted Danny a night or two ago about this, and I was like, "Hey, you want to do it?" So my idea was Bob and Tom show, right? So Bob and Tom show would have guest comedians come on, and they would sit in on the news or whatever else they're talking about, and Dame, I don't know the time here because you know how I am with time. It was either last week or 10 years ago. I was on the Bob and Tom. You know what? This is 2016. Now that I think about it, I was on the Bob and Tom show as a sit-in, and I got
plug.
No, for who?
For your radio appearance.
On Bob and Tom from 10 years ago. Yeah,
it's in the archives.
Yeah, try to find it. You can just fax someone, and they'll.
It's behind the paywall, but you can find it.
And I just remember sitting there, and you've heard the show. Danny's never heard the show, but you hear the show. You think there's this dynamic. You want to be part of it. You've heard what works. You hear what doesn't. You don't want to step on anybody, right? You don't want to step on anybody, and you just want to get your shots in when you can. It's a little daunting. And by the way, this is not the Bob and Tom show. There's a lot less pressure here.
You had, if I remember right, I think you had Chick and Jess on your show at one point I knew they were coming on, and I was super excited for it. And then just the vibe they brought was complete. It didn't match the what you normally hear them as, because they were in a different element and they were just trying to figure stuff out. It was a good show, but it's amazing how you get put in different scenarios and different groups, and it changes everything.
Yeah.
Speaking of dynamics, Danza, former listener of the year, notes, dude, you got to push that drawer in, otherwise 10 out of 10. Danny is in studio with me, actually.
Me and Peter are in the same.
Here, put your hand over.
Peter in the same room.
Here, put your hand over. See, there it is. I'm pointing his finger. Wait, don't do that.
No.
Okay, we're in the same room. It's just a different angle, so that is just like the junky part of the studio. So,
do I have time to ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Are you sure?
There's your question.
Well, move along then.
Go ahead.
No, I'm enjoying being part of the dynamic. My goal is not to score, but merely to enjoy my time with you guys. That being said, I do have a question. You were talking about the FBI raid for financial crimes that was happening in your neighborhood.
Yes.
Question to the group. This happens in entertainment a lot, where we find out that someone is a monster, right? Often. Way far too often. We find out someone that we maybe liked or looked up to as a monster, and then it crumbles, and it's this big, it sends waves through people in the entertainment and the world. When a big financial person gets big old busted, is it a bummer for you guys? Are you like, oh, that dummy? Like, you know what I mean? Is it like the same type of like your hero has fallen?
Dame, this is an amazing question.
Were you guys big Murdoch fans?
Yeah.
Were you a big Jordan Belfort guy? In early 2000s?
No.
I would say, first of all, Indiana is the Ponzi scheme capital of the world. Like, Danny, you may not know this, but in the 90s, early 2000s, there were like more Ponzi schemes in Hamilton County, Indiana.
That can't be true.
It's true.
Oh, it's like the town and bank robberies, but
nationally known, like national news stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
And so what's strange about that is that I knew a lot of these people or knew of them when it down, but their personalities were always such that they were the sort of people. I never root for anyone to fail. I never root for anyone to take advantage of anyone. However,
there's some drama.
So when some of these things happen, you're like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad they caught him. I would say, Dame, in our financial industry, the way you and I view it, at least as former securities license holders, you always rooted for the crooks to get caught, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if that means that somebody that I might have looked up to wasn't necessarily dealing from the top of the deck, then okay. They have no business dealing with the public, and they should be taken care of appropriately. So yeah, if somebody steps out of line and they get to meet the FBI at 3:30 in the morning,
sure.
So be it.
But are you ever surprised on who it is? Because a lot of times we will be surprised who it is. Is it in finance? I feel like it might be a little more obvious.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm not sure how to respond to that, Pete. What's your perspective on?
Yeah,
when people are like, we would have never expected it from them.
Well, I'll say this, and I'm trying without naming names, and Kristen and Dane both know I'm going. There is a prominent personal finance person who people love or hate, one or the other. There's very few people indifferent about this. And Danny, you are now the only person not only on the show, but listening to the show that has no idea what the heck we're talking about.
That's been most of the show.
This person has had multiple exposés written about them in the workplace and the various things, and that have not affected this person whatsoever. So to your point of like these, we were laughing earlier about this, like the Jimmy Fallon story that came out in the entertainment industry of like, he's this terrible boss in the workplace. Well, these things came out about this prominent person in personal finance, a name that you know, but I'm not going to say. And no one cared. Like that's a little bit of a weird part of it. Kristen, do you feel like the shine came off that star at all when those exposés came out?
No, I don't think so. And perhaps the difference here is that the three of us in this setting specifically are probably more of an exception than a rule, meaning that most people in our industry are not working public facing or like in more of an entertainment, like media type spotlight. And so we don't see it with the masses. You see it in your one-on-one workings with people. So it's like you get information from a client, or we would call them participants, and they're like, man, this happened with another professional in my life, CPA, personal financial planner, whatever. And they're like, they gave me this advice and it was bad. And then we're like, man, like what is a client supposed to do because they went to someone they thought they could trust? I think we see it on not a public level, but we do see it a lot.
Dame, I was on the national news this morning with a controversial figure by accident. So I was on News Nation this morning, and the segment before mine was Sean Spicer, who is the former communications director for President Trump. And when the inauguration photo came out, he had to defend the fact that it was the largest crowd of people ever gathered, whatever. And even in those moments where there was a noted fall from grace for Sean Spicer, at some point, whether it's Jimmy Fallon, Sean Spicer, or anyone else who's disgraced, there generally is a path back to acceptance, right? So for whatever that's worth, Danny, to your question, I think Jimmy Fallon will be fine, and I know that was your big concern.
Really roping Jimmy Fallon and Sean Spicer together.
I bet Sean Spicer's been on the Jimmy Fallon show.
Maybe the hottest take of the show so far.
Yeah, don't worry, it'll get worse. All right, so Kristen, what are we doing here?
It's up to you. We can either do the question about 72T or the car question.
72T.
As long as you have something to contribute to that conversation.
I think it's interesting. I don't think people know this. I know Danny doesn't.
It's not as much about the question. It's that it's the second part that makes me think that we could turn it into a segment.
Okay, the part where the person says they miss you?
No.
Okay. All right. Here we go. And 3, what? Am I supposed to say that?
You can, I guess.
I'm not going to give names.
That's fine.
Lots of people miss you. Except Jimmy Fallon. 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner show. Kristen, we got an email. Mr. Pete and Kristen.
Sorry, man.
Dame. The heck?
It's all right.
How are you feeling?
Not seen.
No.
There's a neighbor boy. Can I get a timeout? Can I use my second timeout?
It's all yours.
There's a neighbor boy, friends of young Theodore, and he loves to fish, but his parents don't really fish. And when I'm not hooking myself and going to the emergency room with fishing tackle, I do like to fish as well. That's 2 trips to the ER. Last one was $1,400, and he calls me Mr. Pete. And the other day I went over to fix his rod. This is getting strange. And so being called Mr. Pete in an email makes me think, is this from him? And is he a big Kristen fan and also dislikes Dame? What are the chances of that, Kristen?
He's shooting a shot.
Mr. Pete and Kristen, can you explain how to tie a uni knot on a fishing line? Nope, just kidding. Can you explain how a 72T works and give an example of how it could be useful? Is the income withdrawn from the account counts towards a form of income to qualify for a mortgage loan? Signed, Anonymous. Okay, so before we get there, Danny Dunn, LA-based comedian, joining us here on the show. Relation. Danny, 72T, what do you got?
Yeah.
Will you say the question one more time?
Yes. Can you explain how a 72T works?
That's probably not a car, right?
No, it is not.
Probably not, right?
I will say, Dame, I think 72T is one of the more esoteric things in the financial world, yet is common. Yeah, it's sort of is more common. It's a weird thing. Not a lot of people know you can do it, but it is done on a somewhat regular basis. By no means a majority basis. The average person has no clue what a 72T is.
You think so? You think it's done on a semi-regular basis?
I don't know how to put percentages to this, but I would say clearly it's in the minority of execution. But I think it's an arrow in the quiver that gets knocked from time to time.
Okay, we're going to chase this. What percentage? If we had to guess, and there's probably some stat out there, more or less than 10%.
Oh, that's a great marker. I'm going to let Kristen answer first, but even though she's good at guessing these things, just not Blom.
That is true, and I've got the under all day.
A push.
Oh,
no, under. It's gotta be under. It's gotta be under. Okay, explain it. What is it?
Kristen, go for it.
Yeah, sure. Don't mind me. So Rule 72T is called that, I believe, because it's where it is in the IRS code.
Correct. Sure, always.
So Rule 72T allows you to take funds from a retirement account without paying the 10% penalty. So just for additional context, normally, if you take dollars from one of these accounts before age 59 and a half, you have to pay any applicable taxes that might exist, and you have to pay a 10% penalty because those funds are supposed to be designated for retirement. The rule allows you to take what are called, is it substantially equal periodic payments? Yeah, correct. SEPP, it's an acronym. It allows you to take these payments, and as long as you take the greater of 5 years worth or until you reach age 59 and a half. So if you started taking payments at age 50, you'd have to take them until 59 and a half. If you started taking them at 58, you would have to take them until 63.
And the point is for you to be able to get qualified money out now. Here's what I will say is typically I think this methodology is misused. It is misutilized to force and convince someone they can retire early. So back to the question from the emailer, is the income withdrawn from the account, and does it count toward a form of income to qualify for a mortgage loan? Do you know the answer to that?
I admit that I don't know if a lender would allow you to use it because technically that amount can change, right? Because you take those distributions are calculated annually based on an IRS table. So what if you have a giant drop in the market and you're invested really heavily in equities? I can't imagine a lender would let you use a projection like that to determine if you could qualify for a mortgage. They might allow you to use a percentage of it. I don't know the answer, and whether that's consistent among mortgage lenders, I'm not sure.
Danny, 59 and a half is a very substantial and significant age for anyone in the financial world. I'm curious, as a younger man, a yonker, if you will, I'm literally not joking. 59 and a half, is that on your radar? Is that a thing or no?
No, I don't think about that age ever. And this is going to sound like a bit, and it's not. I think a lot of young people don't expect the world to be around that long.
That does sound like a bit. Either that, or we're all going to cry for the rest of the show.
So I don't think a lot of people my age don't really think about. They're, I think, very short-term focused.
So if you,
especially because it's getting harder to buy houses and things like that, and people are just trying to figure out what's next, not what's later. Is
it hard to? I'm guessing you never even entertain the thought of retirement.
No.
If I were to say, what is retirement age? Could you come up with a number?
65.
Okay.
Love it.
Dame, to the point, and then it's strange. That's been the number that sticks in a lot of people's head. And it's actually currently not associated with any benchmark. It was years ago, but 65 used to be retirement age from a Social Security standpoint, but it kind of isn't now. Yet that's probably the most popular answer if this was Family Feud.
65 is the number you hear all the time. And you're right. It's just not. It's 67. And Danny, I got really bad news for you. By the time you retire, it's probably going to be 70.
Really?
Yeah.
Probably 72 if we're going to really.
I would say at least 70.
Yeah. So make sure to avoid gluten or whatever.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That's good advice.
Thanks.
Can we explain why 65 is the number that sticks out to people? It's because that's when most people qualify for Medicare. And it's usually healthcare that people feel like is the barrier to retirement. And you can qualify for Medicare at age 65. So in my opinion, that's why it's the number that rules, is because healthcare is so expensive. And by and large, when we talk to people that are 59 to 64, they think that's the thing that's preventing them from retiring, which may or may not be reality.
Oh, young person, I disagree.
Whoa. 65. Hold on. I've got it. Dame, hold on. Before you get there, what we have now is a classic nerd off. We've got one person who's got a master's degree making a point that I even forgot about. And then we've got Dame who's going to disagree based on age because he's older. She's younger. Dame, where do you disagree with Kristen?
If you had to ask what age Medicare coverage starts for the average person from age, let's just say 30 to near retirement, I bet most of them wouldn't get 65.
Really?
I bet they wouldn't.
Kristen?
They might not know that, but what we both know to be true is that most of the things we know by and large about personal finances are caught and not taught. So I think it's just something people hear repeated to them.
I think most people tie Medicare to Social Security, and they just assume that whenever Social Security starts, that's when Medicare is going to start. And they've heard their parents, their aunts, their uncles, grandparents talk about the age of 65 for so long that that's just tied into that's when retirement is 65. That's Social Security. That's just when it starts. It doesn't for them anymore. It's 67 for virtually everybody listening to this show. But I don't think that's why people think 65 in retirement is Medicare.
Kristen, Zonda, I'm going to go as Ms. Shaw if you're nasty. Do you think that Medicare qualification will be pushed back to 66 and a half or 70 or 72 at some point, Kristen?
I think that that's absolutely a possibility.
Oh, I don't know.
I think
I think it is possible, but okay, here's what's weird. At one point we were living substantially longer. That's actually sort of dialed back a hair, but I think we're getting less healthy earlier. Would you buy that? So that would mean we have to account for the fact that people live longer, but they're going to be less healthy earlier. I don't know. Let's do this. Let's take a break. Come back with biggest waste of money of the week. Danny Dunn, LA-based comedian, sitting on the show this week. All that's next on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner. Caught, not taught. Are you kidding me, Kristen?
When you said that, I was like, oh, we got the Johnny Cochran financial planning in the house. She's got a catchphrase. See you later.
Is that a thing?
Full disclosure, I stole that from Stacy. Stacy told that to me once, and I ran with it.
Stacy's going to be on the show here sometime soon, right?
She doesn't know that, and she just probably freaked out a little bit. But yeah, ideally.
Stacy, you're going to be on the show. I mean, if you'd like to.
Surprise.
Yeah,
Surprise.
I'd be like a directive here. Caught, not taught. I feel like I have heard her say that now.
Mm-hmm. And you've probably heard me say it as a result, because she has put together pieces that I've done, or like segments she's looked at, or videos she's done. It might have been in the document that I sent last week that you were reviewing, might have been in there.
Danny, you and I actually spend a lot of time talking about the power of words. I mean, you and I talk about it a lot. And caught, not taught is one of those turns of phrase it just hits you. Like when you're writing your stand-up material, and you'll send it to me and we'll talk about it or whatever, and I'll listen to it. When you go to tag it or improve it, it's the slight word changes, even to the point of some advice you got from a legendary comedian about the sound of words. Yeah,
people call them sticky phrases that just like, even if it's right or wrong, it just stays in your brain. And the economy of words is so important, but even just the way things sound is so important. Like this wasn't advice to me, but I think Ray Romano gave a comedian that I know advice about a joke that he had. And he was like, yeah, you got to move this word to the end of the sentence. And then you got to change that last word to a word it's filled with more consonants rather than vowels. He's like, your punchline is soft because the word has vowels in it. It needs to be consonants. And I can't remember what the word was, but just a harder sound, a harder delivery. So when you said caught, not taught, it's like sticky immediately.
Mm-hmm.
It's that is like Danny and I do talk a lot about his work and his craft. And my favorite part as a writer myself is like, I love words. I love the right word for the right situation. And I think as a former comedian, when I used to write comedy, it's exhilarating. And by the way, it can also make you absolutely go bonkers because it makes you neurotic, right? You just keep going and trying to find the right word. And sometimes, Danny, you can't find it.
Yeah, but it clarifies things. And so much of what you guys talk about, and I'm sure it's maybe simple to you guys, but I would imagine the financial world gets quite complicated and convoluted. At least maybe that's to me because I'm, stupid. But when you say things like that, it simplifies thoughts, feelings, and ideas. And I think stand-up, Pete, when we talk, is the same way, where you're trying to express sometimes complex emotions, not to be highfalutin, but you're trying to express yourself, which can be very difficult, very muddied, very challenging. And when you find the right words that just click into place and clarify an emotion or an idea or a feeling, you can feel it with the words. And I feel like when you have phrases like that in finance, I would imagine it helps just because you can understand something very, very complex in a very simple, boiled down way.
It's magic. Speaking of magic, now, Danny, I know one of your fondest memories is being able to see world-class magician Chris Angel perform. And I'm curious if you're willing to share that memory with us.
Do you guys remember who Chris Angel is? Of course. I loved magic growing up. Loved magic. In middle school, I loved magic. I had red hair. I rode a unicycle to school, and I would wear a shark tooth necklace a lot.
Carrot Top?
In middle school, these are the four horsemen of eating lunch alone, we'll just say. But I loved him so much that my mom took me and my younger sister to go see the Chris Angel Magic Show. And it was amazing. It was everything you want it to be. It's my hero on stage. It's the best, right? It's like you meeting Gordon Gekko. Right.
Meeting a fictional character is
right.
Quite a goal.
Didn't know that wasn't a real person.
Santa Claus.
It's like meeting your hero, right? And the show is just amazing, and it's kind of winding down. And Chris Angel comes to like the front of the stage and he goes, "Guys, for my last trick, I'm gonna throw a card out into the audience. Whoever gets that card, you're my volunteer." for my last trick, right? You guys can kind of see where this is going. He throws the card out into the audience. Guys, I leap for it I look like the loneliest bridesmaid you've ever seen in your life. I'm just leaping for this card. And I come down with it, and he looks at me. I'm a 14-year-old boy. And he says something truly I don't think I'd be able to handle now. He goes, hey, man. It's in front of 2,000 people. He goes, hey, man, we've already had a couple guy volunteers for this show. Why don't you find a hot girl and give her that card? Which is crazy to say to a child. Right. I don't know if he's trying to like set me up or like, but I'm 14, right? Like the idea of admitting that a girl's hot in front of like your mom and 2,000 people and this magician who looks like Jesus was resurrected in like a Spencer's Gifts or something. Like I'm acting like in the moment, right? I'm panicking. I don't know what to do. And I feel someone tugging at my Chris Angel merch shirt, right? And I turn, it's my mom. And she's like, no, Daniel, just pass the card to your sister. She's so pretty. Right. Like my mom's asked me to find a girl, or Chris Angel has asked me to find a girl that I'm like sexually attracted to. Right. And my mom's like, have you met your sister? Right. Like, sure, we have a lot in common. It's just only our DNA. Right. And so I'm panicking. Chris Angel's getting impatient. My mom's like, come on, pass it to your sister. And I'm looking at both of them, and they're both wearing the same amount of mascara. So it's very overwhelming. And I didn't know what to do. So I just passed the card to my sister, and we look identical. Like
exactly alike.
I think my mom was cutting both of her hair at the time. It looks like one of the girls from The Parent Trap handed something to the other girl in The Parent Trap. Identical people. And Chris Andrew goes, I told you to pass that card to a hot girl, right?
No.
Because we're like in the front, so no one can really see us. And I'm like, yes. Because that's what happened. And he goes, so why'd you pass it to your sister? And then 2,000 people in unison went, like it was his greatest reveal of the night and I'm humiliated, right? It's CA, it's my hero. And I grabbed the card out of my sister's hands. I'm like, maybe this will save the day. And I passed the card to my mom.
Knew it.
And guys, let's just say it didn't make the situation better.
Yeah.
But that was my run-in with Chris Angel. May he rest in peace. But
wait, he's still alive.
Yeah, but you know,
his career.
He's honestly doing well. I had a friend to see him recently, and he's crushing it.
Oh,
the mind freak is alive and well.
Good thing I own Sephora stock, so that is good.
Yeah, you're good.
So the show is finally funny this week. The show is finally funny. All right, let's go back to the show. This week's biggest waste of money of the week, starting in 3, 2, 1. This week's biggest waste of money of the week right here on the Pete the Planner show is pulling it up for the live stream. The VSSL or Vessel Flasken Speaker, the perfect view, the perfect beverage, and the perfect song. It all comes together with the Vessel Flasken Speaker. Built with 304 stainless steel double wall. Dame, can I have one extra timeout?
I'll allow it.
You're a man.
Thanks.
304 stainless steel is a thing that I hear, read, see a lot. What is that? Is that something?
Yeah, there's different grades of metal, steel specifically, and depending on the hardness, it's a little bit too much to get into. But yes, 304 stainless is legit.
Vacuum sealed construction by the Vessel Flasken Speaker keeps beverages at the right temperature up to 10 hours cold and 5 hours hot. The 5-watt removable Speaqua. The 5-watt removable Speaqua Bluetooth speaker is good 5 hours of music and can be linked together with a second unit for stereo sound. The flask also addresses refilling with losing any of the great beverage. The drinking cap unscrews for filling without a funnel, along with a locking carabiner top for secure carrying. All right, so let's let Danny, as the guest co-host of the show, the guest of the show this week, do you want to be first, second, or third to guess the cost of this?
It's a speaker, but also a water bottle?
Yes, and can I note that it holds 8 fluid ounces of So it keeps 8 fluid ounces.
That sounds
cold for 10 hours because that's a lot of liquid to take down in that much time.
Yeah.
You got to keep it. It's 5 hours of sound, 10 hours of cold for 8 ounces. How much would you pay? Wait, you're going first. How much are you paying for this?
This seems gross. I don't want music that close to my mouth.
Yeah. Fair.
I'm going to guess it costs. I don't know if you guys take things that are crazy expensive on this segment.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to guess it costs $225.
Okay, $225. Got them on the board. Kristen, the world's worst guesser at all things Blom. What do you got?
130.
That's $1.30?
130.
Okay, 130. We got 225, 130. And Mr. Circumnavigate the right price himself, Damian Andrew Dunn, no relation. What do you got?
I'm afraid that Danny's got an edge on this since he's coastal. I mean, he's used to overpaying for stuff. So this might be
because I hate my guess.
Got guess dysmorphia.
Oh God, I hate it.
He was 225. Kristen was 130 or something. I'll try and go somewhere in the middle. We'll say 175.
It cost $150 American dollars. Kristen wins.
Kristen,
Price is right
Twice
rules.
in a row.
It's a waste of money at any price because 8 ounces to keep 8 ounces warm for 5 hours while you're listening to 5 hours of music, like the math breaks down immediately.
No,
it's a waste of money.
It's not for water.
What song would you most want to drink?
Tennessee Whiskey by Chris Stapleton.
There we
go. Dane, what's in the news this week?
The Federal Reserve held interest rates steady in a decision released Wednesday, while also indicating it still expects one more hike before the end of the year and fewer cuts than previously indicated next year. That final increase, if realized, would do it for this cycle. According to projections the central bank released at the end of its 2-day meeting. If the Fed goes ahead with the move, it would make a full dozen hikes since the policy tightening began in March of 2022. There's some other stuff, blah, blah, blah. But Pete, do you know what this means?
It means I was wrong last week and you were right and I owe you lunch.
That's indeed what it means. That's the only reason I read this story was I could get public confirmation that I have a delicious lunch headed my way.
Okay, Danny, you're a very smart guy. Don't say you're not. Do you keep up on current events outside of maybe pop culture stuff, but just sort of like general news and economy news? Do you keep up with that?
You're a very smart guy. Do you listen to the news other than your dumb little shows and stuff?
Yeah. Do you listen to the news? Do you read things other than People Magazine, Danny?
I first of all, shout out People Magazine. Love Who Wore It Best.
They're not going to do a feature on you. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, I would say I keep up with current events.
Okay. Rate hikes and their impact on your life. And again, I promise you, I'm not trying to, you're an everyman, taller than some. Do you think about that? Do you care?
Rate hikes?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, fine. Great. I will say, Dame, I read in that same story that you read that there's belief amongst the Fed they're going to keep rates high until 2026.
Yeah.
That blew my mind. First of all, I was upset I lost the bet because I don't like to lose. But the second thing is 2026. You're telling me our economy is going to be in a similar state for the next 2.5 years?
I might have heard somebody predict that mortgage rates would hit 10% next year.
Yay. My variable rate mortgage.
Were they carrying around a vessel speaker flask and speaker? What else was in the news this week?
This week, Cisco bought cybersecurity firm Splunk for $28 billion. The all-cash deal, worth 13% of Cisco's market cap, is by far the largest in company's history. Splunk, which helps businesses monitor their data and avoid hacks, adds to Cisco's growing ambitions in cybersecurity as the public cloud corrodes its traditional computer networking business. That's all well and good, but I mentioned this for a very specific reason. The day before the acquisition was announced, someone opened $22,000 worth of Splunk calls, expiring 48 hours later.
Was it a congressman?
The acquisition then announced, sending the stock price of Splunk up 20%. The options contracts were 4 cents per contract on the day they were purchased. After the acquisition was announced, they went to $18.30.
Oh my!
That individual exited with a tidy 45,650% return. just your casual $10 million day. Pete, is the SEC on that person's doorstep today or next week?
I had a serious question there. I assume this is a member of Congress.
I have no idea if it was unnamed.
So, Danny, you've heard the popular phrase insider trading.
Yes.
And so this is what I, in my opinion, would deem a perfect example. Kristen, it's taking non-public information like a major event, trading on it, and then capitalizing it. Kristen, they're in trouble, right?
I would hope so.
Danny, you're young, fun, and seem like you've got some energy. The whole GameStop stock thing and Robinhood, did you ever get caught up in all of that as a young?
No, I don't. I would say I like to think I'm a smart person, but when it comes to financial topics and numbers, it is like my brain shuts off.
Yeah, really.
So I do my best, but it is like, sometimes it does feel like a foreign language.
But you're also, I think you make good financial decisions as someone who advises you from time to time.
It's got to be simple though. I make straightforward.
You're
decisions.
just conservative. You just are conservative. You don't.
My parents are both incredibly conservative spenders, or I would say my father is a very conservative spender. I can't tell him that I've bought anything without him being, hey, you should be saving your money. So that's my default is I won't spend money on anything unless the thing I currently own is on fire.
If I gave you insider information, would you?
Let me ask you guys this. When people do that seems, even for a financial dummy like me, seems so obvious that you're going to get caught doing that.
Yeah.
So why would someone do something like that and think, if it is insider trading, why would someone think they could get away with that?
I think it's just smart people assume they won't get caught for dumb crimes. And it's such a dumb crime. And so they just, for some reason, think they're smarter. I mean, Kristen, can you think of a different reason than that?
I can't think of a different reason than that, because you're exactly right. It's like, it seems so obvious. So why? And I've never been in that situation. So I don't know.
Dame, can you just somehow try to keep an ear and eye to the ground for the conclusion of that story? Because I would love to know it. We've made some pretty wild guesses over the years as to that. But Danny Dunn, thank you for guest appearance here on the show. People can find your comedy where?
You can find it on Instagram under Danny Dunn is my boyfriend. You're welcome. There's a bunch of clips on there. And then I think there's a bunch of stuff on YouTube as well under the same name. Danny Dunn is my boyfriend.
Thank you. That's all we have time for this week. Send you good vibes, because good vibes are all that's in the budget. I'm Pete the Planner. This is the Pete the Planner Show. Danny Dunn, ladies and gentlemen. Your boy. And you know what, Danny? This was a great guest appearance. This was great.
Guys, I had a blast. Thanks for having me.
David even says it was a super funny show, and he's really high standards.
And David is withholding.
Yeah. Nice. Great. All right. Well, this is it. I do want to share something. I'm going to go full screen me. Sorry, podcast listeners. Our marketing team put these together for a slightly different purpose. It's the Good Vibes Are All That's in the Budget coffee mug. And I'm pretty excited about these. They're not for you. Okay. What I wanted to say is, here's what's dumb. You appreciate this, but you're never going to actually have it. And I'm going to give it to people who won't appreciate it. Yeah. And they will have it.
Are you rethinking this announcement at this point? Because it's basically just a big thumb of the nose to.
I don't know. Here's the thing about merch. Dan, do you have merch?
I do not have merch.
Is that like a thing in comedy?
People do have merch in comedy, yes.
At what threshold do you get a key drive filled with your bits?
People sometimes get merch very early before they should get merch.
That's embarrassing.
And it's very embarrassing.
Stand at your table by yourself.
I played football at IU, and a guy left early to go to the NFL draft and immediately got all this merch, got a logo, got a chain with the logo, got all the merch, and put up the merch on his website, then fell in the draft and then didn't really stay that long. And I remember our coach being like, I feel like it's a little early for merch. And I see comedians who were like, open mic comedians who are like, buy my koozies. And it's like, I don't think I will.
Too early on the merch. We used to have coffee tumbler merch on the site back in the day. I woke up and made this coffee at home, and Pete the Planner thinks I'm a financial genius coffee tumbler.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then they sold out. They really did.
I could see your fans buying a lot of merch. If you don't want to sell the coffee cups, you could give them to people.
We could do that
for participating in certain things. I think people would enjoy that.
We could do that. Here's my problem with something like this: is this thing is a son of a gun to ship. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like it's expensive to ship. It's very likely to break because it's made of, asbestos. I believe we had it made of asbestos, so that it holds the heat better. All right, that's it. I have a job and I'm going to go do it. Kristen, any plans this weekend?
Nothing exciting, really. No.
Dame?
Cross country. That's it.
I am going to Cincinnati to watch an 11-year-old boy play soccer against boys from Ohio, because the Indiana boys are apparently no boys here. And Danny, you are officiating a wedding.
Officiating a wedding, not Jared Goldstein's bar mitzvah, which again is down the hall.
Yes. Solid joke. Let me know how that goes. Remember, the wedding is about who, Danny?
It's about the couple.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody. Stay getting money.